President Trump just promised a $2,000 stimulus check to nearly all Americans. This would be funded by tariff revenue, but the math and policy behind it, they don't really add up. And here's the million-dollar question: can he actually pull it off? Because if you have followed American politics for more than 5 minutes, you already know promises are easy, payments are not. So today I'm breaking this down piece by piece. What Trump actually said, what the data proves, where the math falls apart, and what this actually means for your wallet, your taxes, and the economy you live in. And I promise you, by the end of this video, you will know whether or not this so-called tariff-funded stimulus check is a real possibility or just another shiny headline designed to get you talking. Grab your coffee, take a breath. We're going deep today, so stay tuned. Welcome back to the Next Level IFAS, where we take the next steps needed to grow towards our financial freedom and success. So what exactly did Trump promise? And let's start with the facts, straight from the source. On November 9, 2025, President Donald Trump posted on Truth Social, and I quote, "People who are against tariffs are fools. We are now the richest, most respected country in the world. A dividend of at least $2,000 per person, not including high-income people, will be paid to everyone." That's it. No conditions, no fine print, no maybe. A $2,000 payment promised, period. Now, for context, this isn't the first time that Trump has floated this idea around this payment. Earlier this year, he talked about what he called the Doge dividend check. He suggested sharing 20% of the savings from Doge-backed initiatives with Americans.
There's even under consideration a new concept where we give 20% of the Doge savings to American citizens and 20% goes to paying down debt, because the numbers are incredible, Elon. So many billions of dollars, billions, hundreds of billions, and we're thinking about giving 20% back to the American citizens and 20% down to pay back debt and pay down.
At that time, it sounded more like brainstorming. Words like maybe and considering were all over the place, so everyone just brushed it off. But this time, the language has changed, the tone has changed. He said, quote, "It will be paid to everyone." That's not speculation, that's a promise. And if you have ever followed Trump, when he says something that bold, it's either going to be historic or controversial, and usually both. But promises don't just pay bills. So let's ask the hard questions. Where is this money actually coming from? Now let's follow the money. Tariffs, debts, and deficits. So Trump claimed that this $2,000 per person payout will come from tariff revenue. Basically, that's the money the government collects from taxes on imported goods. Here's the reality check though. According to official data from the US Treasury Department, total tariff revenues for 2025 is sitting around $195 billion so far this year. That sounds like a lot, until you realize that a $2,000 payment to roughly 275 million eligible Americans adds up to $550 billion. That is more than double the total tariff revenue so far. So right off the bat, you realize that we have got a math problem. You cannot spend $550 billion when you're only collecting $195 billion, unless you're planning to borrow the rest. Now let's add another layer. The federal government is already $38 trillion in debt and ran a $1.78 trillion deficit last year, meaning we are still spending way more than we earn. So when President Trump says, and I quote, "We're taking in trillions and we will soon begin paying down debt," the data says otherwise. No, I'm not trying to pick sides, just showing you the facts. Because here's the thing. Tariffs can bring in revenue, but they also raise costs for consumers and businesses. So even if that money comes in through the front door, inflation walks right in behind it. Let's be real. You can't buy steak with monopoly money, and you can't hand out $2,000 checks when your balance sheet is bleeding red. But let's not write it off just yet. Maybe there is a bigger play here. Let's talk politics and what actually has to happen before you see a dime. What would it take for Trump to actually make this happen? First, Congress has to approve it. Any stimulus type payment, whether it be a dividend, a rebate, a patriotic payout, it still needs to be passed into law. Now here's where it gets tricky, because that means it has to go through the House, then the Senate, then land back on the president's desk for a signature. Even if every Republican in the House supported it, it would still need 60 votes in the Senate to be passed without any reconciliation. And right now, there is absolutely zero sign that any Republican or Democrat would vote in something like this during the era of inflationary risk. So unless the economy nosedives in early 2026, this proposal does not have a clear political path. Now there's another problem. The Supreme Court is currently reviewing key parts of Trump's tariff structure. If the court limits those tariffs or strikes them down, the entire funding source of this $2,000 check gets slashed in half. And that's from around $380 billion to less than $200 billion. So if that happens, where is the rest of the money coming from? This isn't about doubting or supporting Trump, it's about being honest. He made a clear promise, but without legislation, without legal backing, and without enough revenue, that promise is just words on Truth Social. And the last time I checked, you cannot cash a tweet. Now, what happens if he actually tries to deliver? Let's play out a scenario where somehow this does go through. Let's say Congress approves it, the tariff stays high, and checks are issued next year. Here's what would happen. Short-term boost. Americans would get extra cash. They spend it, retailers celebrate, and markets jump. The second thing is that inflationary aftershock would happen, where prices would rise again, maybe not immediately, but in the following months. Remember the 2020 and 2021 stimulus checks? The boost was real, but so was the inflation that followed. And the third thing is long-term deficit pressure. Tariff revenue is not enough to cover it, so we would likely have to borrow more, which means higher debt and potentially higher interest rates down the line. So yes, a $2,000 check sounds amazing, but like every government giveaway, it is not free. And that's the irony. You might get $2,000 now, only to spend $2,200 later on. Why? Because of inflation. Now it's like getting a raise at work, then realizing your rent went up the same week. It feels good for a minute, but it hurts longer than you think. So when Trump says, we'll pay down debt and pay you a dividend, it is emotionally powerful, but economically impossible, unless you have a money printer that runs on optimism. Now let's zoom out for a second, because we're going to look at the politics behind the promise. Why make this promise now? Timing is critical in politics, and right now we're heading into one of the most unpredictable election cycles in modern history. Promising $2,000 to every American, it's not just a policy idea, it is a campaign message. It says, I can deliver prosperity, I can reward the people, and I can do it without raising your taxes. And to be fair, it's smart messaging. Everyone loves free money, but behind that message, there is a deeper story. America is divided between those who are chasing hope and those who are chasing truth. One group says, finally, someone is putting money in our pockets, while the other group says, show me the math. And honestly, both sides have a point. Because if you are struggling to pay your bills, that $2,000 sounds like oxygen. But if you understand the economy, you know money without production is like calories without nutrition. It fills you up, but it does not sustain you. So this debate is not really about tariffs, it's about trust. Do we trust leaders who tell us what feels good, or the ones who tell us what is real, even when it hurts? Let's bring this down to real life. What can you actually do right now whether or not this $2,000 check ever happens? Now, one is that don't build your budget around promises. Hope for the best, but plan for the reality. 2, keep your ear on Congress, not on the headlines. Until the bill is introduced and passed, this remains political noise. 3, if you do get any form of stimulus, use it wisely, like paying off your debt, building your savings, or investing in skills that pay you back long term. Don't treat it like free money, treat it like borrowed time. And 4th, stay informed from real sources. Use sites like the US Treasury, Reuters, and the Congressional Budget Office. Ignore viral clips that twist things for headlines. And subscribe to this channel if you want to get real fact-check information on a regular basis. Yeah, that's a shameless plug. Keep it moving. Remember, if you learn, earn, and grow consistently, no government policy, no matter who is in power, can stop your momentum. Now, to wrap this all up, here's what we need to do. Trump promised a $2,000 stimulus check funded by Tariff. The math does not line up. Congress has not approved anything. The courts might undercut the revenue, and inflation remains a real risk. That's the truth. Not to discourage you, but to empower you. Because in a world full of noise, clarity is information. So the next time you see a headline that says $2,000 check coming soon, don't react. Research. Ask the hard questions. Understand where the money is coming from and what it is going to cost you later. And remember, if you found this video informative and helpful, hit that like button so YouTube will spread it to other persons and we will get more momentum on this content. Subscribe if you want real talk about money, and in the comment section below, let me know if you got that $2,000 check, what's the first thing that you would do with it? Thank you again for the privilege of your time. Thank you for watching, and see you in the next video.